Hello everyone, and welcome to today's live Zoo to You. We are so excited, and not just because we're educators, but we're very excited to be celebrating the International Day of Zoo and Aquarium Educators today. So my name is Katie. If you've watched Zoo to Use, you might have heard me say this before. I am an educator here at the Stone Zoo. I am joined by Danya behind the camera today, who is another educator here at the zoo. And today we are so excited to be talking all about what we do as educators, why it's important, and how you can become one. I am joined by another one of my coworkers here at the Stone Zoo, and this is Alfredo, the Eastern Screech Owl. And Alfredo also works in the education department here at the zoo. She is an ambassador animal, so she's able to meet folks for programming and live videos, just like today's Zoo to You video. So first, I want to talk a little bit about zoo and aquarium educators and what we do. You might have visited the zoo before and talked to somebody who is wearing a dark green shirt or even a light green shirt, some of our volunteers at the zoo. You might have talked to us about some of the animals on exhibit. You might have also done an educational program with us. It is our job to educate people. So we are chatting with really broad and different groups of people. We might be teaching a school program for pre-K children, and the next day we're teaching a 21 plus event and talking all about wildlife education there. So it's our job to teach our visitors all about our animals, just like Alfredo here, wildlife conservation, and the importance of zoos. So you might see us facilitating animal encounters out on grounds, on a live video like today. We do it all. Why are zoo and aquarium educators important? So when you visit the zoo, one of the biggest reasons for having zoos in our modern world right now is to educate people and teach people about conservation. So it's our job to inspire people to want to go out and protect animals and their habitat. So having zoo and aquarium educators is really important for bridging that gap between humans and wildlife and kind of painting this picture that we're all here, sharing the same environments as these animals, and we're all part of the same picture together. A lot of times when people see me out in the zoo and they're talking with me, they say things like, and not to brag, but they'll say things like, your job sounds so cool, you must love going to work every day, and sometimes I even hear, how could I get your job? We do have really, really amazing jobs here at the zoo, so I'm here today to talk a little bit about how you might be able to become an educator at a zoo or an aquarium one day. So a lot of us in the education department here at Stone Zoo and also at Franklin Park Zoo in Boston, we have really diverse backgrounds. So myself, I went to college to study wildlife and conservation biology, essentially doing field work out in nature, which was really, really cool, but I quickly realized that was not for me. I don't like winter, I don't like being cold, and math was not my strong suit, and it is a very big part of that role. So I actually started an internship down at Franklin Park Zoo and kind of tried out what it was like to be an educator. So if you're not familiar with internships, it's a really great way to get into the zoological field, whether you'd like to be an educator or a zookeeper or even work in a department like marketing. Internships are a really great way to test out a job before you commit to it. Getting experience is the biggest thing. Jobs in zoos are extremely competitive. We do a lot of really amazing things here. And one of the best ways to get those full-time positions in zoos and aquariums is to start with seasonal positions. So maybe starting out working in our education department as an interpreter over the summer or starting off as an intern. So get that experience while you can in any way that you can, and it makes it a little bit easier for you and have a little bit more experience for those full-time roles. Now, we did have some questions submitted ahead of time for today's Zoo to You, but if you still have questions, please feel free to type them in the comment section, and we will do our best to answer them at the end of our video. So these questions were all submitted by middle school students in the area, and while I cannot read all of them because this would be a very long video, we have selected a few that we're going to answer. So these are questions a little bit about what it's like to be an educator, but also a little bit on the insider scoop of what it's like to work in a zoo. So Abby asked, what kinds of animals do you teach people with? And that's a really good question. If we're out walking around the zoo, we can use the animals that are out in their habitats in the zoo and talk all about them. We can also do programs in our classrooms or even at schools, and with those programs we might bring ambassador animals. Ambassador animals are select animals that are able to come out and meet people close up, just like Alfredo here. So Alfredo is one of our many ambassador animals that we have between Stone Zoo and Franklin Park Zoo. Some of our other ambassadors might be our box turtles, Phoenix and Donatella. We have different snakes, frogs, chinchillas. Those are all ambassadors that we can teach people with. What do you do if an animal gets sick? That was asked by Ben, and Jackson asked, do the animals get sick? Those are really good questions. Animals can get sick just like people can get sick. Some animals can also get things called zoonotic diseases, which is a disease or an illness that animals and people can get. One example of a zoonotic disease that we have heard a lot about in the last few years is COVID-19. That is a zoonotic disease. Our animals at the zoo, those that are susceptible to COVID-19, which includes big cats, primates, and a few other species, all received 2 doses of their COVID-19 vaccination from our veterinary staff. So if our animals do get sick, or if we're doing preventative medicine, giving them vaccines that they might need, that's all done by our really amazing veterinary team here at the zoo. So that's another really cool zoo career. We have a team of veterinarians and veterinary technicians that just work here at Zoo New England. So they will work with animals as small as our frogs, all the way up to the giraffes at Franklin Park Zoo or the snow leopards here at Stone Zoo. So it's a really, really important job in keeping our animals healthy and happy here at the zoo. Charlie asked, where do you get the animals and do you take them from nature? That's a really good question. Here at Stone Zoo, some of our animals are rescued. Alfredo is an example of one of those rescued animals. So she was actually found out in Western Massachusetts, still in her egg, and a tree company was doing some routine tree work and accidentally cut down the tree that her nest was in. And her mother had flown away. It's pretty scary for a tree to be completely fallen. And Alfredo and her sister needed to be rescued. So they were brought to the Blue Hills Trailside Museum. Their eggs were incubated and they were hand-reared by people. And because of that, Alfredo is completely imprinted on people, which means that she would not be able to find her own food or stay safe from predators. So it was deemed that she had to stay in human care. So she came to live at Stone Zoo when she was 3 months old, and she's been here ever since, and she's a wonderful ambassador for her species. So some animals like Alfredo or Bubba and Smokey, our black bears, are rescues. Our other animals are all born at other zoos. So sometimes animals do leave or come into the zoo from other zoos, or if it's a rescue situation. And that leads right into our next question, which was submitted by Claire, who asked, do the animals ever leave the zoo? And sometimes they do. Sometimes our animals go to other zoos as part of breeding programs, and that's really important, especially as we talk about critically endangered species and maintaining their populations here in zoos. So if you were at Stone Zoo back in 2018, we had Pandora and Nafisa, our snow leopard cubs, born here. And it was very bittersweet when they were fully grown. They went off to different zoos. Pandora is at the Idaho Falls Zoo, Nafisa is at San Diego Zoo, and that's part of having animals in zoos. Since snow leopards don't live in family units when they're full-grown adults, it was time for them to disperse and go off on their own, just like they would out in nature. Now, this is one of my favorite questions I've been asked by Thomas, who asked, what is the weirdest animal at the zoo? And I asked a few of our staff people, because I think we all have different ideas of who the weirdest might be. So if you ask me, I would say the weirdest animal at the zoo is probably zookeeper Bridget. She's one of the weirder ones at the zoo. But I did ask her who she thought the weirdest animal at the zoo was, and she said Motto, who is our adult male bush dog. I asked Educator Danya behind the camera who she thought was the weirdest, and she also said the bush dogs. So we've got 2 for bush dogs. And Educator Lexi said that Aoife the reindeer is the weirdest in her opinion. And I do agree with that. Aoife the reindeer does sometimes get the zoomies, just like your cats or dogs might at home, but seeing a reindeer with the zoomies is a little different. So it is really cool to see that. And lastly, Nina asked, can you bring the animals places? And the answer to that is sometimes. So some of our animals, like Alfredo, that are ambassador animals, we might be able to take places off-site at the zoo, and we have to do that very carefully. Alfredo, since she was raised by people, she did not come to us having any injury, so she is fully flighted. That means if she chose to, she could fly all around. She has no injuries to her wings. So something we might do if we took Alfredo somewhere out of her habitat here at the zoo is I can wear a glove, and you'll see there's a clip on this glove, and I can actually attach her leash right to that clip, which keeps her nice and safe on my hands. So right now her leash is actually tied to this perch, just keeping her in place. She is really comfortable on this perch right now, but if something did happen, if there was suddenly a loud noise and she felt scared, her first instinct is going to be to fly away and find somewhere safe. So this just keeps her nice and safe with me instead of somewhere in this room. So some of the animals we can bring different places. And I believe we had a few questions that were submitted in the comment section.
Do you ever consider yourself a zookeeper?
Do I ever consider myself a zookeeper? That's a really good question. As educators, at least here at Stone Zoo, we do sometimes have overlapping roles with our zookeepers. So I guess the answer to that is sometimes. On Danya's days off, I would consider myself a zookeeper. So Danya's role in the education department is the ambassador animal specialist. So she is essentially a zookeeper for us educators and for our ambassador animals. And on Danya's days off, I help out with some of that animal care. So on those days, I do consider myself a zookeeper. But educators and zookeepers, we do a lot of similar things. We are all out there talking about the animals at the zoo and educating people about them. We're caring for the animals, and we're all here for the same reasons. And that's because we really care about animals and conservation and protecting wild places.
And what is your favorite type of program to teach?
My favorite type of program to teach. There are a few. I don't teach as many programs as I used to, but in the past, my favorite to teach was Zoo Camp here at Stone Zoo. I taught Zoo Camp for 5 years, which was really fun, and now that's Educator Lexi's role. So maybe some of you watching are campers or have campers that attend Zoo Camp with Lexi. And I really like Zoo Camp and some of those repeating programs because I get to see a lot of familiar faces over and over again. So there are some families and some campers that I have known throughout my entire career here at Stone Zoo, and I think it's really special to get to watch people grow up and learn and try new things. So that's my favorite program.
How do you become a zoo educator?
That's a good question. So for most zoo educator roles, not all of them, but most, having a 2, 4, or 6-year college degree does help give you a little bit of a step up. And usually having a degree either in education or environmental science is really helpful as well. I do not have a degree in education or environmental science. My degree is a Bachelor's of Science in Wildlife and Conservation Biology. So we all have very different backgrounds, but something that all of us have in common is getting a lot of experience through part-time or seasonal or unpaid positions. So that is really common in the zoo world to do things like internships or seasonal positions. If you're interested in seasonal positions, at Stone Zoo and Franklin Park Zoo in the summer, we hire camp counselors and summer interpreters that are out speaking to our visitors about animals, and those are really great ways to get a little bit of experience.
Did you ever consider being a zookeeper?
Ooh, that's a good question. I did consider being a zookeeper. In fact, when I started my internship at Franklin Park Zoo and Education, I originally wanted to do my internship in animal care. So I did education instead, and I did that not knowing if I would like it. I did not have a background in education. I had no formal experience with education, so I really didn't know what to expect, and I fell in love with it, and that was around 7 years ago now. So it's been a long time, and I've gotten a lot of experience through that internship. It taught me a lot, and the educators that I was learning from that were my mentors taught me a lot as well. All right, well, as we are wrapping up and talking all about educators, I want to talk a little bit about some of the programs that we offer at both zoos. So if you are really interested in spending more time with us amazing educators at the zoo, you might be interested in some programs that we offer. So we have Education here at Stone Zoo, and our December session is still available to register. That is for ages 7 to 10, and it's very similar to an after-school style program here at the zoo. We have December Vacation Week happening at both Stone Zoo and Franklin Park Zoo. We have behind-the-scenes tours here at Stone Zoo. So another one of my favorite programs to offer, where we will take visitors into our sloth exhibit and learn all about our sloths here at Stone Zoo or our red pandas at Franklin Park Zoo. And it might only be November, but we are gearing up for another amazing summer of Zoo Camp 2023. So if you're interested in Zoo Camp, more information will be on our website next month, and registration will be happening in January. So thank you all so much for joining us for International Day of Zoo and Aquarium Educators. I hope you were able to learn something new and come to the zoo and talk to us in person. Bye.